Welcome to the Faithful Fireside podcast.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Ryder, I guess.
Today we got an episode. Ryder's got a topic for you, so we will get to that here in a little bit. But I think Ryder is celebrating some post-birthday stuff today with some friends. Got some like board games, card games set up or something like that.
Yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of that. It's an octave of Easter when we're recording this, so that's cool. Yeah, so that'll be a nice segue for later, but it's still kind of like a solemnity. So it's a Friday you don't have to do penance on because it's Easter, you know? So I'm probably going to go to Chili's and try and pick something that won't kill me off the menu, which will be really hard, actually.
I've been there in forever. What was the thing that everyone used to get? Like the Chipotle...
The honey chipotle chicken strip thing?
Yeah. Those are so good.
Yeah, I remember those. Chicken.
I'm sure not great for you, but
chicken
so
is
good.
Definitely one of your weaknesses. You want to tell people about Chef Ray's?
Yeah, I don't. Well, it probably doesn't help that I intermittent fast every day.
Yeah.
So then when we're working in the office and you smell that fried chicken, everyone else is eating, and you're just like salivating.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah, you haven't eaten in 16.
And one person on the team gets it, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm gonna get it.
Maybe I can have Chef Ray's. And then it's delicious, but then the entirety of your innards are cleaned out and your gut biome trashed, and, and there's nothing left alive after you're done.
I know. Maybe we should suggest to them, like, hey, I'd pay like $2 more if you guys would just fry this in beef tallow.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's like, could you guys just not kill me?
Yeah.
Please?
It's too bad he got something to run off to after this because Katie... She's at UCO today with all her junior high students doing their national history projects. It's like a competition today.
Which is, that's right. Yeah.
So that's today. I'm going to go out there after this. And
nice.
And it's too bad Kelly has to go to a funeral after our interview after this, because he would enjoy that too. So
right, that's right. Both. Yeah. So we're going to go to Chili's. There's a story about Chili's that I always like to tell, that I had one of my professors was Dr. Dudley Chansey, Oklahoma Christian University. He taught youth ministry, and he did a lot of teaching methods is what he was teaching you, and then how to, teach young people, because young people, are young people and they kind of suck. But there's ways that you can kind of handle that and try and reach through their teenage barriers and things like that. And so he was really a great teacher. But I remember one time he was just trying to get us to think about how we could teach a lesson that would stick a little bit longer than just the end of our service or time together. So I remember he's like, most of the time people are sitting in the pews and the sermon's over and they're like, man, that was a good message. Let's go to Chili's. And that kills me. Even to this day, I'm just like, cool. Let's go to Chili's. And so how do you speak something or participate with somebody in such a way that it really is transformational and they don't just want to go get them baby back ribs, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Classic 90s commercial.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure it was late 90s, but maybe early 2000s.
Probably because it makes me think of Austin Powers.
Oh, okay.
You're right, because, he who shall not be named, of the fat Irishman, or the fat Scottishman. I think he was actually a Scot. I can't remember right now because I haven't seen that movie in forever, but, he actually did the I want my baby back ribs in that movie, right? Because he wanted to eat Mini-Me, I think.
That's funny.
Yeah.
How was your guys' Easter?
It was really good, I think, ultimately. So we had we split up because we had 90 people joining the church at St. John the Baptist, because Catholicism is apparently exploding everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we had got a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I'm like, 8:30 to midnight mass is going to be really hard because I almost die anytime the mass goes over 60 minutes. If it's like a 90-minute mass, those two babies have got me on the ropes by the end of it because I just have to fight them. They're not pew sitters for sure. And so I thought, I'll keep the babies, Lindsay, the lovely lady Lindsay, that's what I call her. Sometimes it's good. You take the big girls, you guys go to Easter Vigil because she really wanted to. And so I just kind of went Easter morning, which was crazy at St. John's. I mean, there was you were there, right? You guys got locked up in the cry room.
The last seat in the cry room.
Yeah, I was all the way overflowed into the Great Hall.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All the way into the Great Hall, and it was almost all the way full. I mean, there was people.
I might have left.
It was like 7:30 in the morning.
What, did they have a good TV or screen?
They had a screen in there. Everything was set up. So it was kind of like remote mass, but the priest came and Monsignor Novak came out of nowhere, like off the top rope with holy water, and just came out, started sprinkling people from the back. And so we didn't even know he was in there. And so people were like, because they're getting hit with water. And then he just smiled and giggled. He just got the biggest kick out of that. He was just wrecking people's life with holiness. It was great. It was awesome. I mean, that alone was worth being in the Great Hall because people just didn't know
that's cool.
that he was coming. So the priests were in and out, But I'd never seen anything like that where they were really just the entire church was one big giant mass. They had people
for the 7:30 a.m. mass.
7:30 in the morning. There are no parking spaces. I had to go park on what looked like just kind of an abandoned parking lot kind of thing, sort of by Baggerly Funeral Home. There was there wasn't anything in the lot except a dumpster. So I don't know if that's overflow for Baggerly or what, but I had to park there and walk. And I got there, I was like, it's 7:30. I'll just get there at the normal time. And I made it just in time. The procession was starting, but all the ushers are like, I'm sorry, you got to go to the Great Hall because everything is full. Everything. It was super cool, I think it was nice because a lot of people were joining the church, and because it was Easter, you have people who are not necessarily Catholic or supporting the new Catholics and all are there also, but it's just it was crammed. Which I guess, I mean, there's 5,400 families at least in St. John's that are registered. So if you have a lot of the Creaster Catholics like you talk about, I mean, it was Easter and everybody showed up.
Yeah.
If everybody showed up all the time, it would always be like that.
I wonder if that would be a better tagline than my shirt. Catholicism is exploding.
Yeah.
What did you guys eat for lunch?
You asked me what I ate on another day that's not today. I don't know.
We cooked a ham, mashed potatoes, green beans. We had a cake.
Okay. Yes.
We had charcuterie board and all that.
It didn't register as lunch because we eat our Easter meal at lunchtime, but it was almost 2.
Yeah.
I think at 1:30ish. I think when we got there and actually ate it. So I'd fasted until then, pretty much. I don't think I ate anything. If I did, it was really, really small right after after mass. But we had ham. I had ham and beans and deviled eggs and angel food cake.
Oh, dude, I ate so many deviled eggs.
I love deviled eggs.
Yeah.
And so,
aren't you supposed to put cayenne in them?
Or paprika, one of the two.
Pretty sure my wife puts neither because she hates spiciness. I'm always I think there's something missing.
Yeah, it's paprika is what I like on them.
Dude, there was one year Katie's grandma, the ones that living down in Ada.
Yeah.
Brought a bunch of deviled eggs, and everybody started eating them, and everyone at the table was just like something is off. And then after her grandma had 2, she was like, she's like, I think I forgot to put mustard and some other stuff in this. We're all like,
yes, the mustard. It was the mustard in the kitchen with the, what is it, candlestick? I'm making a Clue reference.
Oh, yes, yeah. Maybe so. Yeah.
I could tell that you definitely did
Took a minute.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, well, we're supposed to talk about Easter, so I guess we will.
Yeah, that's a good segue.
Yeah, this the Easter lunch and Clue and who got murdered in the kitchen with the candlestick.
Which was my favorite board game as a kid.
That was a great game. I think they made this, but
Fire Oblivion.
yeah, right there underneath Dune.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they made a Scooby-Doo Clue, and if they didn't, they should,
Yeah, I'm sure they have.
because I would definitely play Scooby-Doo
Yeah.
Clue. I'm a big Scooby-Doo fan for whatever reason. I don't know why. All right, so basically we're gonna talk about Easter. So there's a few things in Easter I want us to talk about specifically. So where does it come from? What does the word mean? What's the liturgical season of Easter like? Maybe how does that compare a little bit to Lent? We'll talk briefly about how they calculate the date, but we won't go over the algorithm because I'm not that much of a nerd.
Okay.
Except I am, but we can't talk about that on the show. So we can maybe post about it or something. And then some different celebrations and misconceptions about Easter, stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay, so is there something that comes to mind? I'll ask you this from like the Old Testament that Easter is closely tied to. This is the cradle Catholic versus convert question. So in the Old Testament, what's the closest thing to the Easter celebration or the crucifixion and the resurrection?
Was it at the same time?
This takes place in Exodus. That's your big.
I mean, like same time of year? Or,
Oh,
no?
yes.
Okay.
It's the same time of year.
So was the point of this to kind of like overrides past tradition or?
I wouldn't say override
Okay.
as much as like fulfill, right? Complete. Because Easter's like they're celebrating the Passover, right? And so this is basically the connection goes straight to the Passover. So Easter is just our celebration of the Christian / Catholic expression of the Passover. So that's kind of the Exodus tie-in. So you'll have like the remembrance, and like that's what they're doing. They're actually preparing the Passover meal, right, at the Lord's Supper, right before Judas leaves early and betrays him and everything. They're celebrating the Passover. Oddly, with bread and wine and no lamb specifically, right? That's kind of the thing that's interesting because Christ is the lamb. Like that's what we're supposed to kind of get from that. So they're celebrating the Passover, and it's sort of interesting, and this will get into the word a little, but we call it Easter, and the Germans call it something very similar. It's like Ostern or something, but I don't speak German. Everybody else calls it some variation of the word Pascha, which is where Paschal mystery comes from, right? So they, in the East, in Russia, and all those languages, it's just some version of Pascha that people say. So we have, of course, that the gospel where they're doing the Lord's Supper leads to the crucifixion and resurrection, and then you have that tie into Exodus. But then in like the 2nd century already, we have Christians celebrating Pascha. We have records of that. So it's like super duper early, pretty much off, like right off the cuff from the jump. There's some kind of resurrection celebration.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. All right, so any thoughts, questions on that?
Not yet.
Okay, cool. I think the big thing really that when we think about Easter and we're celebrating the resurrection, it is this theological center point of our whole religion is this moment. And St. Paul says, if there's no resurrection, then you've hoped in vain, right? Your religion is worthless if there's no resurrection. And so St. Paul said that, so that's big for us. And it's kind of important, I think. Easter is not just like one of the many feasts, it's like the preeminent feast, right? It's the most important one. And then Christmas is second. Okay. So the word Easter, I'm sure you've heard lots of stuff online about like Easter being tied to Ishtar or other pagan,
Fertility god, all
all
this
that
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all dumb. There is one thing I'll talk about that might be sort of connected, but it makes no sense anyway because we're the only ones that call it Easter. And like us and the Germans have a special name. Everybody else calls it Pascha. So like that whole argument is just like irrelevant, you know. So we can go with that, just kind of to start. So it's interesting. There's a lot of different forms. I won't go through it, but like all the Romance languages, the Greek derivative languages, the Dutch, Scandinavians, Russians, all some version of like Pascha. Arabic does something different. Even it's not like Pascha, but it's not Easter. It's like it basically means a Christian feast. So it's all not even remotely tied to the Ishtar thing. So Pascha just means Passover also. So like most Christians just keep calling it Passover. So that's kind of cool. That's the thing. It's not well known, sort of a deal. So English and German, we mentioned that. We have this reference. This is the only reference that ties anything to a god or like a pagan deity of any that I could find anyways. Venerable Bede from the 8th century. So this is Venerable Bede is one of our most important English monks that wrote, and we have lots of stuff that he wrote.
Okay.
And he mentioned that there was an English monk called Eostre that was named after the local goddess Eostre, and that Christians just kept that month name and then filled it with Christian content. So that's the only thing that might be Easter. It has nothing to do with Ishtar. Ishtar is like a totally different language family, ancient Near Eastern, like Semitic languages. Totally different.
I always wondered where that came from. I never looked into it.
It just comes from people being like Ishtar and Easter sound kind of similar. That's literally the whole argument.
In which part of the world did he say
Ishtar is ancient Near Eastern. That's like Mesopotamia,
Okay.
the Fertile Crescent type of stuff. So you'd be like Babylon, stuff like that.
Okay.
So that would be like if you were going to do like a philosophical
it's
study.
still somewhat in the area, but not.
It's just not. So if you were to do like a philological study, which is like the study of languages and like how they evolve and how they're related, and also includes how stories are connected to each other, like myths and folk stories could usually get brought into that as well. The Semitic languages would be related, like Ishtar would be related to the Semitic family of languages, which is like Hebrew and Aramaic and Old Akkadian and even Arabic today. Those things, that's a language family. Because Easter comes from like German and Old English family, that's like an Indo-European branch. So it's a completely different etymological families.
Okay.
So that's kind of the big thing about that specific point. They're not even related, the languages. So, really Easter, it probably means something like dawn or the east. So there's some sort of a symbol, I think, of just like the rising of the new sun, right? Which is there's a pagan idea in that, right? That even like Ra in Egypt, again, we're going back to the east, but still the idea of Ra kind of going into the underworld, having his victory against the underworld, coming back up, that's sort of a cyclical resurrection idea. So the name Easter kind of fits into that same pattern, but it's kind of like we talked about, when we did our book club recording last night. Anything that's true is ours, right? Because there is only one high God. So that means whatever is true is reflective of him. Doesn't matter where it comes from, So there is this cycle. Christ does die. he does go down and harrow hell, right? In the same way that the Egyptians talked about Ra doing that, right? So Christ does that. Then he comes back to life, and that's why that moment becomes the kind of crux of all Christianity. Is like either Christ came out of that grave or he was another story in that pattern, right? And to the best of what we have historically, and based on literature and based on the way that all of civilization developed after this guy, the best explanation we have is that he actually came out of the grave to radically transform everything like this. So the job of somebody who doesn't believe that is to try and disprove that happened, because if they can't, then how do you explain all this, right? And it usually those explanations are usually pretty bad. They fall short somehow.
Maybe I always look towards simple explanations for things, or just like a human element in it. But the fact like all the apostles all died and like saying the same thing, they never
Right.
last minute was like, oh, this is a farce, or they died for it.
It's hard. That's
that
actually
many
one
people.
Of the things.
Like you can maybe say one or two people were brainwashed or something. Like the whole group till their last breath was like, no, this really happened.
Yeah.
That's what gets it for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. I mean, that's something you have to contend with, and so somehow they have this mass delusion that spreads out all across the entire known world in the Roman world when they have roads and infrastructure and the ability to communicate, because all that will fall away after this too. I mean, as Rome declines, things get worse, right? That's why the quote unquote dark ages happen after the fall of Rome. So this is like the moment for this kind of thing to happens, and then there's no close apostle or disciple of Christ that's like, okay, this was all made up.
Right.
Not one. So you have to contend with that. And some people find that really convincing, other people don't. I think that's convincing.
I mean, which apostle was it that sought out like Jewish people or believers? Was it
So when they split with
before he became an apostle? Who was it?
So before he was an apostle, was a Pharisee.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then he has an encounter, and it's interesting too. There's an interesting note on that too, because there's not like people talk about that as like Paul's conversion moment, because there's a lot of like Western Protestant thinking that is deep rooted. But as far as they were concerned, he was a Jew before, and then he encountered Christ, and he was still a Jew. He just believed in the Messiah, So that's an interesting thing to kind of think about too for us, because we have a lot of like, what I used to use like the term ossification, like hardening into different groups, and we become less flexible, which is what kills bureaucracies and stuff like that. They become not very flexible and rigidized.
Yeah.
And so we get rigidized into the categories that we have in our heads now. So we think that somebody believes in Christ is a Christian and not a Jew, because we were all pagans. Those of us that weren't Jews, we were all ancestors. Our ancestors were all pagans. So we're of pagan descent, which is the same thing as saying Gentile descent, basically. I just think it's a better word. And anyway, that is just kind of a fun little note I wanted to kind of throw in there. It's like, did Paul really convert, or did he just accept the Messiah of his own faith in that moment and stop resisting it? Did he just obey?
Yeah.
So that's kind of food for thought thing. And so that's really all that they have. The idea this there could be this connection to Eostre, but that was the name of a month of a local deity. All local deities are overthrown by the saints as Christianity spreads, right? So that instead of having a local goddess, this Eostre, you'll have a local saint now over that area. If that makes sense. So that's why we have, St. John the Baptist is patron of Edmund in that sector, St. Monica in the other sector. That's how that works. Okay. So a little bit about like the season of Easter. Do you know how many days Easter is? Has anybody ever told you, or do you remember?
I mean, I'm just gonna guess. The number has to be 3 or 7.
Nope.
Dang it.
So,
Good guess.
so like how long is Lent?
Yeah, technically 46, but it's just 40 days.
That's right, because the mini Easters in the cycle within the cycle. Sunday's always a little Easter.
And then Christmas is 12.
12
right?
days of Christmas, yes. So Easter has 50 days.
Oh.
Yes. So there's a big
Oh.
misconception of Catholics that even Catholics themselves have of themselves, right? That we're kind of a mopey, brooding, penitent people. But the idea of the putting Lent for 40 days and then Easter being 50 days is actually we're a resurrection people. So yes, we do our penance because we believe that you need to do that. But when it comes to the great 50 days of joy, it's longer. But our culture has completely thrown away all of the celebration in the name of like efficiency, right? Because that's what we do. It's like, cool, you get Americans, you have like 12 days off a year aside from your weekends or whatever. Go forth and die in your cube.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way that goes. But actually, you're supposed to take like a whole 50 days of celebrating in Easter, and the first 8 days are called an octave, which is really cool. There's a couple, octaves in the church are like taking the solemnity of Easter, that great Sunday, and you spread it out over the whole week. So the rules of not fasting for penance or doing penance and just celebrating on Easter actually stretches all the way to Divine Mercy Sunday, because this 8 days is that high feast. So liturgically, you'll have like lots of alleluias in the liturgy itself. All the masses, you're going to be wearing white or gold or some sort of the really nice symbolic colors. You'll go through the Acts of the Apostles and the readings, and you're just supposed to have 40 days of feasting. So it's big on joy, not just big on fasting. So, kind of given that, the question I wanted to ask here is, what could we do better? Because I don't do this right. Like I had already forgotten that today is a part of the octave of Easter. So instead of fasting, because it's Friday, because it's in the Easter octave, it's a solemnity, it trumps that. It's a feast day. And I'm like, whoops, I totally forgot about that just because of life and work.
Yeah, I don't think I ever knew that.
Well, why not?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And so, how do we celebrate Easter in a society that is so busy that it's like, Easter, here's your one day. Nobody, and then where we work, you don't get Good Friday off either. Some places do, but lots of places you don't get Good Friday off.
I guess I'm still surprised that some public schools still get out for that,
Mm-hmm. Well, good for them. I mean, it's Good Friday. Good Friday into the Silent Saturday into Sunday is one of the most important times of the year, but we just have such a hard time with our like consumer brain where it's like buy, 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 go, 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 work, work, work. And it's just, why can't you just have 8 days? It's like, this is Easter. Holy Week is like the saddest week of the year. This is supposed to be the happiest in a sense, right? Like the resurrection has come and we just do almost nothing for it. So that's my reflection question for everybody. How can you observe Easter just a little bit better throughout the actual season and octave of Easter?
More ranch waters? No.
I mean, as long as you don't get drunk, more ranch waters is totally legit.
It's impossible to get drunk with this.
For you, you metabolize tequila better than any other human being I've ever seen in my life.
Speaking of metabolizing alcohol.
For Easter.
I think I heard this on some health podcast. You have people that always get made fun of like being a lightweight.
Yeah.
I always get accused of that, like drinking in my friend group. Oh, Kevin, 2 beers, he's drunk. Because lightweight.
Yeah.
And then you have people who are like, can drink a lot and it doesn't impact them.
Right.
They're like,
Right.
oh, they're heavyweight. They can handle their alcohol, but it's actually flipped. If you're a lightweight, it means your body is healthily processing the alcohol. Like your liver is immediately going.
Oh, I see.
But the other guy doesn't have healthy liver, so it's taking a long time to process it, and it's building a backlog in its system, which is not good.
I see. I see.
So I was like, all right, I'm
You are
healthy.
healthy. Look at you. You're I mean, you're the healthiest guy I know. That's for sure. You know. That's good to know. So you want to get drunk quick.
You want to be a
If you're going to get
lightweight.
drunk. Yeah, you don't actually want to get drunk because you're not, remember, drunkards don't inherit the kingdom of
You're
heaven.
not listening to the Catholic Stuff You Should Know podcast.
They shouldn't be telling you to get drunk. But you should drink.
We're gonna after this, we'll listen to the first bits of the last episode, and I want to see what you think.
Okay.
I love the guys; they're funny.
Yeah, they are funny. So I guess we'll wrap up that. Like, how do you celebrate Easter? You should drink, but there's a debate amongst the table whether you should get drunk.
Sure.
Okay. So, how do they figure out what day Easter is? Because it's actually complicated.
I mean, I would hope that there were like Roman records of something, but
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah. We have records. We have the basic idea is Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. Okay.
When's the spring equinox?
March 21st.
Okay.
So the spring equinox is how they account for the sun. Then it's the first full moon. So they also account for the cycle of the moon. So it's the cycle of the sun and the cycle of the moon first Sunday after that. See?
Oh, that's why Easter always changes.
That's why it always changes.
I always wondered, like,
Yeah.
what the heck? I was like, I swear it used to be later in the month or the,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It always changes because so the earliest Easter date
So
because
equinox and post full moon.
So that's right. Post spring equinox, post full moon. So that means you have March 22nd is the earliest possible day for Easter.
Wow.
That means that the equinox happened on Saturday, the day before.
Oh, that's why Lent changes too.
Yes, because it's 40 days. So you have to calculate the 46
It's all making
days.
sense now.
It's the circle of the spheres. Everything is a cycle and a cycle and a cycle, and then
So used to our American dates of 4th of July is always
it's always the 4th of July. It's always George Washington. Make George Washington happy day. With the liturgical act of blowing up fireworks and all that stuff. Yeah. Because if you don't do that and drink beers and make hamburgers and hot dogs, George Washington will be sad. So you have to, which is hilarious, I know, but that's kind of the idea of civic holidays. It's the same thing. Civic holidays are venerations towards secular things, which is kind of interesting because, people who don't venerate the saints are fine with venerating secular things. So just think about that. Okay, anyway, so the latest date, as far as I can tell, right, my math could be a little bit wrong, but I think April 25th is the latest date that you can have for Easter. So there's actually like more of a month variance, which is why people get shook by it sometimes, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's super late.
Yeah, so it's just cycle and a cycle, and we just do that all the way down. There's a yearly cycle, then there's a cycle of years. So you have A, B, C liturgical years, and within that year you do a cycle of liturgy, and then there's seasons inside of those, and the week has a cycle, and you can even get all the way down to the day. Some people actually do this, and it's not super common, but they'll observe like the hours of the day. So the liturgy of the hours is the like public prayer of the church. It's actually doing this. It's doing that daily cycle. But some people who won't do the liturgy of the hours will still observe at Divine Mercy at 3 p.m. because that's the time traditionally when Christ dies on the cross. That's our understanding of the time. So once you hit to 3, it would be a moment of silence, having to do a prayer, or you would do the Angelus prayer at like 6 and noon and 6 again. Like all of those things. So it's cycles all the way down, even a daily one. And then even like the rosary, if you were to pray the rosary as a part of your cycle of daily prayer, the rosary is a cycle of a moment, right? And going through the whole gospel in this one prayer act. So there's even cycles inside of that. It's important, I think, because we're not really linear people. Everybody thinks about time as a line, now, like post enlightenment, post the scientification of the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's way too simple because the way we interact with nature, the way that the seasons go, the way that things actually are is in these cycles. We've just been able to neuter our environment and constrain and control it so much that it's always the same temperature in my house because I have money and the ability to control my environment. So, yeah, it's summer, I just don't go outside, right? Which is bad. You need to go outside and sweat and get hot, and then you need to go outside and get cold, and you need to do all that stuff. Um, and your body should go through those cycles in the seasons. I think you'd just be healthier, you know. But no, we just make everything nice, clean lines and pretty and get rid of the gray as much as we can and make black and white decisions, and none of that's particularly human, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really the simple thing. This first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox is Easter in the West. So that diverged in the West and the East. So there was always the idea from the 2nd century, at least from what I could find, and we have always had the idea that we need to celebrate the Passover or Pascha as Easter, but the question was when, you know. And so they were trying to come up with a bunch of different ways. At the first Council of Nicaea in 325, they wanted to kind of figure out like what should we use. So the date they actually use computus, which is like it's spelled like computus. It's the calculation is what that means. And so that's kind of how they did this with the solar year, lunar cycle, and then the weekdays, and then boom, that's how we're going to do it. Paschal full moon. That following Sunday is Easter. Then they started. There was a changing of the calendars from like the Julian calendar, and then there's the Gregorian calendar. All of those have different rules for how you calculate that, and so that kind of starts to diverge between like the East and West, and having different days for Easter in the Orthodox Church, which is something that I know the Pope. Several popes, I think even Pope Francis actually said, if I remember right, at least I saw something along the lines of him basically telling the church in the East, it's like, hey, you guys pick a date for Easter and we'll just do that. But the church in the East is still, there's a lot of division and with the Orthodox churches, especially like the Greek speaking, like the Byzantine group, that's related to like the Fourth Crusade, and that didn't go very well. So that's something we could talk about at some point. So there's a lot of pain and division about how that went in like 1204, even now. Okay, so that's the calculations I wanted to talk about. And as far as like ways to celebrate Easter, what do you guys normally do in your family? Just Easter lunch or Easter dinner and then nothing else, or do you guys
Morning mass,
Yeah.
Easter lunch, then after lunch we do all the egg hiding for the kids,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yep.
That's usually pretty much it.
That's pretty much all we do too. Mostly the same. We may have eggs on a lot of days throughout Easter, and that's actually one reason, by the way, the Easter egg hunt at St. John the Baptist being on Divine Mercy Sunday, it's the end of the Easter octave. That day is stretched out over 8 days, so it makes sense.
That makes more sense too now.
Yeah.
I'm not as offended.
And then we talked, I think, during our Lent episode, like why eggs? It's because eggs are rich food, and way back when you couldn't eat eggs right on Lent either. So there's kind of a celebration to be able to eat eggs again. They were a treat. And also painting the eggs that you couldn't eat so you didn't waste them. All that kind of stuff is theories as to why we still have eggs and stuff like that. Now we just fill them with chocolate.
Where did the bunny come from?
The bunny, I don't know exactly, but there's the Easter, it's not a rabbit, I don't think. I think the Easter bunny is supposed to be a hare, and there's a difference between rabbits and hares, right? And so the hare is like a symbol of fertility and like birth, and um,
Which I guess
it's
that is why
it's
some people try to draw it from the other thing or the connection.
yeah, so there's a connection there just with like the abundance and the growth and the life. And hares are born, my understanding from research I've done on that in the past is hares are born with their eyes open and bunnies are born with their eyes closed. So they're actually positive and negative of the same symbol.
Interesting.
Rabbits are the desire and the lust and the sexual urge, which is tied to like the dark side of reproduction, where the hare is on the positive side, and the symbolism has to do with the eyes,
Yeah, I didn't
from what
know
I
that.
found. So
Is
it's
it more of a
really,
West thing, or do they do this in the East too?
I don't know. I don't know. I never looked that part up. That's a good question. I think it's in both, but the only Orthodox folks like Deacon Seraphim, Richard Rowland, I listen to all the time and really appreciate his perspective, and some of the guys on like Ancient Faith Radio. Those guys live in the U.S.
Okay.
and so they're kind of it could be a Western culture thing that they're in, and not so much something that in the East they may not do Easter eggs at all.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think Russians do, but I don't know enough about that to say.
Okay.
I'd actually, if there's anybody who actually listens to this, that would be kind of interesting to know.
Don't sound so depressed.
But if there's anybody who actually, because we have Greek Orthodox friends and stuff on Substack. If there's anybody who happens to know more about like Easter egg practices in Russia, or among the Copts or anything like that, it'd be interesting to know. Okay, so that's most of it. I think this is a big thing where, Easter Vigil, you got like the mother of all vigils. The people join the church. The church grows in that moment, right? Which is super cool. Lots of
What time
baptism
is the Easter
confirmations.
Vigil usually?
It depends. Vigils used to be like start at midnight,
That's what I thought.
right? And then they would go until the sun came up.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that's what they used to do a long time ago. And so it's actually kind of interesting because there are a lot of like Easter sunrise, celebrations now, which is almost the inverse of what the traditional Christians did, right? It's like part of it, I think, is because of persecution and being, needing to worship underground and being worshiped in such a way that they weren't getting caught because they were being accused of being cannibals because they were eating Christ's flesh and drinking his blood. But they weren't cannibals, they were eating God. So that's another thing. But the whole idea is worship at night, and then the sun comes up, and we're done. So you'll have Protestant folks, they used to do this at Methodist Church back home. It's like as the sun is rising, go have a service out in the pasture somewhere, watch the sun come up, which is kind of interesting, but it's sort of backwards. So in the Catholic Church, we still do vigils, but because we're, probably a combination of not being under threat yet, and then also being too comfortable. Instead of doing it at midnight, we'll do it, sometime between 8 and 9. It'll start and run until about midnight. But you still have the vigil in the dark, is the idea, right? With the candles. That's what you typically do.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so we do that. We renew our baptismal promises during Easter, which is why, Monsignor Novak was sprinkling everybody out.
I don't think
out of
we got it
nowhere.
in the cry room, unfortunately.
Oh, Lindsay did. Well, I can't remember. I don't know if Lindsay was in that room or if she saw this happen. Actually, I think she said she was in there, but he like stuck his hand in there and just Monsignor Novak stuck just his arm in there and started sprinkling people, but he's on the other side of the door. So it's pretty great. It's a nice shield. But yeah, so that's kind of the big thing, the main deal with the Easter Bunny is that's pretty new, and the chocolate eggs are pretty new, but I think it grows out of other European spring customs, like we kind of talked about. As far as misconceptions about Easter, and we're getting close to the end, is, Easter is secretly about the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar. Already debunked debunk that. That's like
Debunked.
debunked. Man, you want to talk about Freudian slips from a programmer. Yeah, so there's just nothing. They're not even remotely related. Of course, the second myth about Easter is like this is just a pagan spring festival that's been baptized. First of all, one of my favorite jokes is even if that were the case, you better stop talking smack or we're coming for Shark Week. Okay, that's the thing. It's like we take what we want.
Yeah.
And I have no qualms about that. Second is it's not really true though. Like the actual content of the feast is explicitly, extremely, very much Christian and rooted in the resurrection and the description of how that all works in the New Testament. So there's nature symbols and spring symbols like eggs, and we talked about hares versus rabbits and stuff like that. But all of the Christian interpretation and understanding of those symbols gets rooted directly in Exodus and the Gospels. And then if you do the readings in the Vigil, they go all the way back to Genesis and do that marathon of the Old Testament readings. So, there's just not really anything to it. There's another myth that I had here that Easter is like a later Catholic invention, which I kind of already talked about. That's just not true. We've got second century accounts of people observing Pascha. The question was just like when, right? That's the big question. Maybe a little bit about how, but when was the big thing. And then the last one I had is there's kind of a trend, or at least there has been a trend in recent years where people wanted to say like Resurrection Day and not Easter, which is tied to, probably tied to the Ishtar thing, which doesn't make any sense. And it's fine to do that. There's like no ambiguity if you say Resurrection Day. I can say Resurrection Day is every Sunday too, back into the cycles. But it's not really the point. You can say Easter, or if you wanted to say something that actually made more sense, you wouldn't say Resurrection Day. You would just say Pascha. You would just say what everybody else says. If you don't like the word Easter, just say Pascha and know that that's a Paschal mystery, which is how we refer to the Passion and the Passover and the linking of the Passover lamb and the lamb becoming Christ, who is God, right? So that's pretty much it. I think those are the main misconceptions that I've heard. Any thoughts on those? You have stories, people coming at you like?
No, just things I always saw on social media.
Yeah, same thing.
Mostly I didn't know about the timing of Easter, and I didn't know that it was celebrated for 50 days. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's the big one. Like, what can we do with the sacraments and Scripture, concrete works of mercy, feasting and celebrating? How can we take that Easter joy and extend that out, right? Because we haven't done, as Catholics, we have not done the best job of that, because we're always thought of as being penitent, self-flagellating, like whipping, sad people, right? That's why there was literally an argument about whether Batman was Catholic or Protestant. and this is like, I can't remember who it was, but it was like filmmakers. They were arguing. I think it was for the Dark Knight trilogy possibly, but they were arguing about that. And then they came down because Batman has to be Catholic because Protestants would never be this brooding. And I'm like,
that's hilarious.
That's phenomenal. I'm just like, actually, yeah, probably, to be honest. But, we're also a joy people. So we just have to try and think about how can I live that out better, I guess if you don't have anything else, I just want to end the episode to announce, that was my comic book segue. So our next book club book is going to be Mr. Miracle, which was written by Tom King. And so we're going to kind of switch from the health, wellness, and stop being so comfortable and go now into a really good comic book story about new gods. And so I think it's really, really good. It's one of my favorite things. This is one of my top 5 favorite books of any genre, of any format. So we'll be discussing Mr. Miracle, and not for the faint of heart, but has a ton of deep meaning in it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that's it.
All right.
give me more coffee.
All right, time for more coffee, and we got an interview coming up. So,
All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it.
see you next time.
Bye-bye.